Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 6 p.m. or shortly thereafter. We're meeting in the lower, meeting of the select board. We're meeting in the lower theater. There is a Zoom link attached to the agenda, or you can call in. There's a phone number also on there. That being said, do the start the meeting and call the meeting to order. First item of business is to approve the amended minutes of August 23, 2022. I don't think they're amended. I think those are the ones we just got. So does anybody have a chance to read the minutes? Okay.
I move that we approve the minutes of August 23.
Second that.
You have a second? Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes of August 23rd. Any corrections, deletions, omissions? I have a couple of them on the Route 121 bridge update. I'm not sure which this is, but it says they took a 14-foot core and the material disintegrated. I think it could be a 14-inch core. And down there, it's repaired gears. I think that's supposed to be piers. That's the piers that they were talking about, filling with concrete or something there. So those two that I could see in there are the only ones I noticed. Anyone else? All those in favor of accepting the minutes to corrected minutes with the two corrections for the minutes of August 23rd, let's say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Minutes. Okay. Additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters and pressing matters that will require ratification at a future meeting. I have none. Nothing. Anybody else? Moving right along. Public comment on items not on the agenda, 3 minutes per person. I believe we have a group from the hospital over here for the Greater Falls area of services. That's what this group is over here, I believe. So there's no comment, and you're on the agenda, so you'll be coming up. Manager report, Scott.
A couple items, just as Peter had mentioned, I did get a follow-up email, which I shared with the council on the board on the 121 bridge project. So it seems like we're back to square one based on our conversations with the Vermont engineers. So it appears that we're going to go back to do a full redesign at this point. Probably our next logical thing to do would be to talk to Westminster again as they start to scope this project and ask them if they can design into the project this time the 4-foot separated pedestrian or bicycle path on the new bridge, since they're going to have to redesign the entire bridge at this point anyway. And do it in a formal way. I think it might even make sense. Maybe the bike ped folks could do something to the board in a formal way, and then the board could do something to the Westminster board, so that when they have their scoping meeting, we can try to address it, as opposed to the last time we were told it's too late, and we can't do this, and we can't do that. And we're basically back to square one here. So
I'd be glad to bring it to the bike ped committee at our next meeting.
I think that's probably a good path for this.
We got a mention of maybe they might want to patch that joint on the lower side of the bridge there. Every time we go over it, keeps slapping and banging. This may come loose. I don't know why they haven't patched it yet, but
Yeah, I'll ask them about that
should be,
too.
you just mentioned it to them.
Yeah. So, but
It is their responsibility to maintain that until they do the bridge anyway.
But it does put you out a significant amount of time now for this new project.
Right.
Probably 18 to 24 months, to be real honest with you. So
Okay.
the, if you drive, you'll notice down there the Central Elementary School, we're finishing installing the rapid flashing beacons at the corner. So there'll be one set. The school board bought the 2 beacons. We're doing the installation and working with the electrician to get them wired. They didn't quite finish last week. We were hoping they were going to come today, and then the rain came, so I don't think they finished today. But they should be up and operational this week.
Will those sense a pedestrian?
Well, what you'll have to, there's you'll have to push a button in order for it to engage. But you've seen it before at other places, and it's hard to miss if you're driving down the road. You know, I hear all the time people complain they don't see a stop sign, which is hard for me to fathom, but okay. You can't miss this. If you miss this, then you probably shouldn't be driving the vehicle. So it should improve that intersection and make, I think, things visually much safer. and we'll see how it goes. We still have the engineering grant out, and Gary's been working with our, trying to come up with consultants to do the entire area redesign and look at pedestrian and safety improvements for all of those School Street in and around that whole area. So when that comes back, we'll certainly let you know. So it's an ongoing process, but this should help that intersection significantly. And then the weather impacted our chip sealing. We had hoped to get a good chunk of it done today and finish up this week. Now the chip seal folks are another day behind, which probably means we won't see them until either late this week or early next week to try to finish up that portion of Pleasant Valley Road. But so far, so good. And we did today put the portable speed sign up. So we'll start taking data and seeing how it impacts speeds, because people love it when their road gets paved and then they complain that cars are going too fast. So it's like a catch-22. So we'll get some data for you on that and see how it's impacted. Yes.
Question. Speaking of that intersection, has there been any further developments with the group that was going to build the community garden?
We've had talks through the summer. They had sent out, been working with UConn, doing some soil testing and some updates on trying to come up with a final design. So they haven't been able to get to that point yet. So we have not gotten into the lease discussions very in depth. They're waiting on all that detail to come back. So they're still very interested. They still want to pursue it, but they're doing their due diligence on a couple things that are going to impact the aesthetics and the visual design and how it's going to get laid out. So as soon as they get that information back, we'll sit down and hopefully get a draft that we can talk about here fairly soon.
Great.
Yes.
Anyone else? Questions? Tom?
One quick question, Tom. I had mentioned to you in an email about possibly getting those cameras that check somebody's speed and sends a ticket for some of the speeding problems like in Bartonsville. Did you look into that?
It's in Vermont, that's a little bit of a, we're a little constrained on how to do that here. And I don't think our legislature has been real aggressive in supporting those in terms of you have to get a specific grant in order to be able to authorize the tickets by mail. And my understanding of it is you have to go back and basically ask for special legislation to get that accomplished.
Really?
So
Special legislation for each location, you might want to.
for red light cameras or speed cameras or
Yeah.
anything that does remote ticketing where it's not done, directly through the police.
I've never seen one of them on
Right.
camera, ticket camera things. Anyone else?
I've never seen them for speed, take the thing, the only one I've seen is that, on the toll booths or something like where they take a picture, you don't have an easy pass or something
Yeah.
like that, but other than that, I've seen cameras on the posts. I mean, we had one at the bridge over here. Actually, old Dock Bridge, but I think they were just monitoring traffic conditions, not
Right.
ticketing anybody, so.
That's too bad.
So it's going to be, right. I think it's going to be a process if that's going to be reality in Vermont. I think it disturbs some people. So, and there's been mixed results. Some places that have done it, have found that it really generates a lot of ill will, and they're not so sure it really helps in the long run for the actual speed enforcement. So it's a double-edged sword with that one. That's it.
All right, let's go down to the first item, we're acting as the Board of Liquor Commissioners for the first class liquor license for Laszlo's Pizza Palace. There's a application in your packet. Pretty complete to me. Nothing missing off it.
And this is just a renewal, right?
Yes.
So take a motion to approve the first class liquor license for Laszlo's Pizza Palace.
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve a first class liquor license for Laszlo's Pizza Palace. Sue, do you have any comments or anything? No?
No, all set, thanks.
Okay, we have the original right here. All those in favor would say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. It's coming around for signatures. Go right to Scott after it's done. Hey, next item on the agenda is the VCTV hearing for a planning grant for the railroad station. Gary, you got that one?
Can you announce opening a public hearing for this grant number?
Okay, we're now in the open hearing session for grant number 07110-PG 2022 Rockingham -03.
Hi, so this is the Vermont Community Development Program, which offers block grants. And this particular one is a planning grant for the train station project. And after acquisition of the station, the town will create construction documents and a request for proposals to do the work that's been planned in rough form through the feasibility study. And there's about $250,000. It's 10% of the hard costs of construction, which are $2.5 million. So that's remediation of contamination, brick repair, repair to bulkhead foundations, restoring all of the windows as maintaining their historic character, but repairing the sashes and the wood doors. And so what this grant, what the $250,000 provides is the request for proposals, construction and RFP management to get that work implemented. And the budget for that program has $60,000 coming from the Vermont Community Development Program, $6,000 coming from municipal funds, which you folks approved on August 9th in a municipal resolution. And then $184,000 from Chrissy grant, which is Consolidated Rail Infrastructure Safety and Improvement, that will come through VTrans with the town as a sub-grant. And the applications that you have includes the narrative. So for these grants, the state wants to see what's the need. How the block grants are for to help low income. We have a area-wide benefit where for block grants, 64.9% low and moderate income. The benefit is assumed rather than having to be recorded with the income verification of users. And so they asked to describe what you're doing, which is the description that's on page 1 and some photos of the deterioration, the canopies that are going to be restored, with some photos from our early 1900s. And I think they were taken down in like 1966, maybe. And so those will be restored also. And then there's the description of need, which I was starting to get into with the 64.9% low income. So this describes how we determined the need for improving the station. And it's a combination of the low income population, the Vermont long-term rail plan to increase passenger rail through Bellows Falls with an additional round trip that extends to Montreal, but similar to the existing route. So there'll be those 2 round trip routes, and then extending a Valley Flyer, which goes from New Haven to Greenfield. That'll be extended to go to White River Junction. So there'll be 3 round trips a day through Bellows Falls. And so the need is determined by, we have a stop on the Amtrak line. We have increased service and ridership, and we have a need for increased economic activity to help the prosperity of the low-income population in Bellows Falls. And we have a station that's kind of dilapidated, not necessarily safe or attractive. Not attractive because of the dilapidation, and not safe because of the lead and asbestos. So that's the need that we identified, and how this project will meet the need is by making it safe, remediating lead and asbestos, making it attractive by repairing the dilapidated brick. And of course, the window and canopy restoration. And additionally, there's some ADA requirements that aren't met by a lot of these historic Vermont stations, and the Department of Justice has required Amtrak and VTrans to get all of those up to code. So we have an opportunity to work with those organizations and get some cost efficiencies by sharing overlapped work and combined mobilization. And so we are taking advantage of, we're working to coordinate, take advantage of that opportunity. And that's the basic nut of it. Some of the things that they care about is what's the other funding? What other approaches have you looked at? And so, for instance, private ownership for the station, not a good option. The last people that were looking to buy it wanted to turn it into housing. They wanted to live near in a historic brick building near the railroad tracks. And we want to make sure that it stays in public transit. The Amtrak coming through 3 times a day is beneficial to our community, to our economic activity, prosperity, and for residents to use for to visit north or south. And other funding opportunities. So we've applied to the NBRC, which we did not get. That was $350,000 towards some of the restoration and some of the purchase. We applied for a USDA community facilities grant, which we haven't heard from. We applied for downtown transportation fund for $200,000, which we were awarded. And of course, town voters approved $75,000 towards the acquisition at town meeting. And we have a $1.8 million congressionally directed spending, which has succeeded halfway through the process, but still has to get through an appropriation before it can be granted through Chrissy, through VTrans to us for the train station. That's pretty much everything that they're looking at there. Timing pressures, there's a NEPA process. The National Environmental, they want you to look at the environmental conditions. Like, for instance, are there endangered species? Are there some bats that if you do some work around there, it's going to cause a problem for the habitat? Or is there some other kind of neighboring contamination? Or is there archaeological sensitivity? Are you going to be paving over a burial spot? That you're going to be digging up a ground that could be indigenous people's burial spot and then paving it over, something like that. So the NEPA review looks at all of those activities, and we will complete that and have a letter of release from that review before we close on the purchase. And so that basically covers it.
Anyone have any questions for Gary?
I do. Gary, the sequence of when are we closing with the railroad on the building itself?
So that would be after we have a release from the NEPA review.
Okay.
So the railroad is I mean, for other than getting closing documents together, they're ready to close. They sent a purchase option back to the town attorney. You folks approved the purchase option and concept in August. So there's all of the closing details, like the attorneys verifying titles and that sort of research. But basically, as soon as the NEPA review is done, which the best scenario would be in early October. It won't be before that. It could take a little bit longer.
Thanks. And now you said that we don't own the land under the building.
The state owns the land under the building. That's correct.
Okay, so we can work on the foundation of the building without encroaching on the state's land.
Yes. And part of one of the benefits of going through the NEPA review is that the civil engineers there and historic preservation archaeologists that the consulting team has are working with VTrans, Department of Historic Preservation, Department of Environmental Conservation, to make sure that all of those pieces are aligned with their, each agency has its own fine print in terms of what constitutes ground disturbance and triggers environmental study, what constitutes pre-disturbed soil that is going to trigger a need for archaeological exploration before you do the work. So all of these pieces are going to be agreed to and negotiated beforehand. So the work that we do in other people's, like in the state's land, will meet their requirements for, they're going to say it's okay before we do anything, or we won't do it.
Okay, and last question, the platform used to go in two directions. Did you talk at one point about extending the, replacing with platform that had been removed, or the overhang?
Yeah, so the canopies, the overhang, we want to replace that. That's a good example of where the state owns the land. There's regulations where for certain work, utility is a must. That's has to be allowed. Other ones are discretionary depending upon the agency. As long as you put the dirt back that came out, where you put it back where it came from, you're not triggering any ground disturbance. So for the platform, if they allow a trench at the right amount of distance from the base of the station, where any footings could be installed for the canopies without triggering any issues, then we'll restore the canopies. You're providing budget permits, which we think it does because we planned the budget for it. But if it doesn't, if that's not allowed, then the canopies could end up being cut.
Thanks.
What happens if you don't pass that NEPA review?
Well, it's not so much a matter of pass it as what conditions there are. So for instance, the sewer lines and the water that feeds the radiators are very, 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 very old. They're 100 years old and they're all rotted. They're of odd shapes that you can't even connect with anymore. So in order to replace those, we need to dig up the road and redo the water and sewer service to the building. And so part of that, how that's done, the NEPA review, they won't say you can't do it, but they could say, well, if you dig past the sidewalk, you're going to have to have some archaeological study, or probably they won't because utilities get a pass anyway, but that's the type of thing where they could put conditions on you, but they don't fail you. So for instance, if it, a recent one with up at in the industrial park with some stormwater damage, there had been endangered bat species, and so you could not cut any trees down after, it might have been like April 15th or April 1st. There was some date in which the condition from the NEPA review was you could not cut any trees from X date to Y date. But it's not that you don't pass, it's just that there's conditions that protect that endangered species. So we won't fail the NEPA review, but they may give us conditions that are.
So is there a possibility that meeting unexpected conditions might add to the?
That's always a possibility, yes.
Anyone else?
We are, I just would say that we are putting a lot of time and resources up front with very qualified consultants to get the best results so that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But before we do anything, we're putting the time and energy in now, and it's a lot, and but it's also a lot cheaper than running into problems later.
Right, yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
So we are doing everything we can to avoid that.
Great, thanks. Good job.
Yeah, great work, guys.
Okay. We'll
Any
close that
comments from the
hearing.
public?
Close that hearing and open up the next hearing for grant number 07110-IG-2022 Rockingham-06.
So that is the Greater Rockingham Area Services Boiler Replacement Project. Back in 2020, we hired let me backtrack a little bit. Greater Rocky Area Services is a nonprofit organization that manages the buildings and grounds at One Hospital Court, what everybody knows as the health center. We don't provide the healthcare, but we provide the space for the healthcare to happen. We were noticing that our operating budget was getting increasingly higher and higher and higher with the cost of fuel and the cost of maintaining all of our mechanical equipment. We had a study done by Du Bois and King in 2020, and they assessed that replacement of the boiler would give us the most, for lack of a better term, bang for our buck as far as savings, and then being able to accumulate those savings for other projects that we need to have done. So the biomass project, the scope of the work for the biomass project includes project management. It includes light remodel and demolition and light remodel of the boiler room, the installation of a Schmid biomass boiler with a propane backup, an external wood chip silo, and then all of the connecting to our systems, a control system. Total cost of the project is $1,870,850. That's a big sum of money to get a budget for. So we started looking around, and funding that we've received so far is we have received we will be receiving $817,908 from Northern Borders, and that's an implementation grant. We have received $60,000 from Wyndham Woodheat. We'll be receiving $72,000 from Vermont Capital Investment Program. We are hoping to ask the town for $28,000 as part of the town ARPA public process. We'll be looking for a USDA grant of $250,000. We've received $50,000 from Efficiency Vermont incentives. And then the remainder of the budget, which is almost just a little under $100,000, about $97,942, will be from GRAS fundraising efforts. We're here tonight to ask for your partnership with the Community Development Block Grant. Basically, we would be the pass-through recipient. A lot of the qualifications that Gary mentioned are the same qualifications that we have. There's an area-wide need. We have a very low to moderate income local economy. Having providing health care for those folks is a big plus in this community. Within the health center complex, you have primary care, pediatric care, psychiatric care, dental health, mental health. We have a fitness center. We host Fact TV. So we're pretty much a hub of local healthcare, easily accessible to the community. We're on the Mover bus line. We're within walking for a lot of folks. Springfield Hospital back in, I think, early 2000s did a community assessment need. And what rose to the top in that community assessment need, when asked the question, what is the one thing that is needed in a vital community? And they said healthcare, access to healthcare. So we provide that for this community, and we have since 1912. This project will allow us to remain sustainable for many years. We'll reduce our operating costs by $55,000 because we'll be moving away from oil and moving to wood chips. Wood chips are a stable commodity. We can better budget and know what we're going to spend in any given year. With the cost of oil, it fluctuates and it makes it very hard to budget. We will be reducing our emissions into the air, the carbon emissions, by about 702%. So we'll be helping the greenhouse gas lowering in Vermont. I'm not as polished as you, Gary. I think, we've also, for funding, we've also, in addition to the funding that we've asked for and that we've received, we did explore other funding sources. We did reach out to Bernie Sanders earmark, the congressional direct spending, and that we did not receive that. We reached out to Preservation Vermont, or community fund preservation Vermont. We didn't qualify for that. The size of the project, the amount of money that we need, and the fact that we are one step away from healthcare, we don't provide it, we provide the space for it, made it a unique challenge to find funding. That had the dollar amount that we needed and that we fit into their parameter. And so we have kind of a narrow scope of places we could go to. Northern Borders was one of the big ones, and community development block grant was the other big one. Let's see what else. No, timing pressures. So there's definite timing pressures to this project. One of the biggest timing pressures is the fact that boilers right now are at least a 6-month lead time. So I have to be able to get all of my funding in place, go to the procurement, the process of putting the project out to bid. And then once I find the company I'm working with, they would then order the boiler. We can only do the project obviously in the non-heating months. So in a good year, we have a window of May to October. In a cooler year, we might have June to September. So those are the constraints that I'm working with. That's why I'm trying to get the funding organized as quickly as we can to be able to order the boiler by the end of this year to have it available for us next spring. So that we can do the project next year. And then by 2024, we would be using the boilers, the new wood heat boilers by that, well, the end of 23 and into 24 heating season.
Okay, anyone have any questions?
Yeah. So does Springfield Hospital, they run the clinic?
They are one of our, they lease the space from us and they run the clinic.
Okay, does their financial instability threaten your operation at all?
It does. But so it becomes a catch-22 if we say that Springfield Hospital were to pull their operations and we hadn't done anything to the business, to the building, we wouldn't look good to new renters. If we upgrade the building and get the building a new boiler system, we're also looking at possibly a solar project. The savings from those two will help us do a lot of little facade upgrades, some more infrastructure upgrades to put us in the best possible light. Should that happen, we would then be able to reach out to possibly other health centers or like a convenient MD to have them come in and lease the space. So if we don't upgrade, I can't sell the space.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. So far, I don't see any indication that they would be leaving, but it is something that's always in the forethought of the board and myself is, kind of a plan B.
Because they closed the maternity services there last year, did they?
At Springfield Hospital,
Springfield,
correct.
yeah.
I can tell you that the Wyndham Center, which is run by Springfield Hospital,
Mhm.
it's a 10-bed psychiatric unit that we have up there. That is a good profit center for them, as is physical therapy, which we have there. Springfield Medical Care Systems, now North Star, they run the walk-in clinic, the pediatric care, and the primary care.
We can start the wood chips. You got some sort of,
Outside silo.
oh, that's a big one. Sure. Bonnie, anything? Right, Gary.
Yeah, so just from a development office perspective, the board did pass a resolution for this grant on August 9th. And so for this public hearing, I think it's just a good reminder, Marty mentioned the ARPA funds, but in the public process, it's the only project that all 3 communities scored within the top 3 projects. It did score really highly for every community in Rockingham really wants to see Grant stay up to par for the facility.
I guess you're all set. No one else has any questions or any comments from the board over there, I guess?
One thing that I'm not sure that has been brought up before is that we are not able to buy the heating oil locally because the boilers are so antiquated, that they only use a type of heating oil that has to be procured from, I think, New York State.
Bunker oil, basically.
Yeah, it's,
Number four.
yeah.
It's pretty bad.
It's like the tar.
So this would get us on a locally sourced fuel.
And the money stays in the community.
Yes.
A lot of good benefits.
I guess we can close this hearing now. And move on. Thanks, Marty. Thanks, Gary. Item number 4, which is the appointment for a deputy town health officer. There is a memo from Chuck with suggested motion and an application requiring my signature. If someone wants to make a motion to make that suggested motion, we can get into discussion if there is any on them.
I move that Sean McGinnis be appointed as the Deputy Health Commissioner for the town of Rockingham.
I'll second that.
And you already the full motion because it authorizes to make the sign.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there
It's at the, in the box
Yeah, bring the
on
box
the
there.
explanation memo.
Suggestion.
Oh, okay, sorry. Oops, I got the wrong document here. Okay, recommend Sean McGinnis to a 3-year term as Rockingham Deputy Health Officer and have the Chair of the Select Board, Peter Golick, sign the Vermont Department of Health recommendation form.
Here a second.
I'll second.
Okay, any questions? Pretty straightforward. Sean's already done the health officer for a while. And it's just a hurry up because we couldn't get anybody else to do it, I guess.
It was Chuck the health officer?
Yes.
In the interim?
Not the interim. He is the health
Yeah,
officer.
he is.
and
He's
then
a
Sean-
We'll continue to be.
Right, okay. So this provides backup?
Yeah, basically, yeah. If he's not available, then Sean will do the inspections or whatever.
All right, and a piece of Sean's salary will be paid for by the town now? Is that was the proposal said?
There is money in the budget already to support this, so it sort of goes towards that.
Okay.
I mean, most of the time, Sean, to be honest with you, Sean goes on most of these inspections that Chuck goes on because most of the time there's a fire component to what they're trying to also remedy, so.
All right, so,
Yeah.
all right.
If you look at the form, it says it's a reappointment, so,
Okay, yes.
so
Oh, yeah.
he's done there. So,
Okay.
no further questions? All those in favor of the motion would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
Aye.
nay. Motion carries, and I will sign. And we'll move on to planning commission appointments. There's, in your packet, there's a notice from Chuck about a couple of people. Deb Wright wants to be reappointed, and I believe a Mary Wallace, who comes from Saxon River, I was told, that is a student person there that's on the, that will be learning as time goes along from the board, so we will need 2 motions as they are suggested there, so.
I move we appoint Deb Wright to the Rockingham Planning Commission starting September 1st, 2022, for a 3-year planning commission term.
I second that motion.
Okay, Jim's just a reappointment, so it shouldn't be anything too serious there. The motion's been made and seconded to appoint Deb Wright to the planning commission for a 3-year planning term, September 1st, 2022 to 2025. All those in favor would say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Motion carries, and someone wants to make the second.
I move we appoint Mary Wallace to the Rockingham Planning Commission starting September 1st, 2022 for a 1-year planning commission term.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to appoint Mary Wallace to the Rockingham Planning Commission starting September 1st to fill a 1-year planning commission term. Any questions, suggestions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion would say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The next one is the request for equipment funds for fire department reporting software, ESO contract. There is a literature in your packet describing what they're going to do between the 3 departments. Hope everybody had a chance to look at them, but the fund is requesting $7,531, $7,531.
So it supports all 3 of our current operating fire support organizations. And really what happened was the prior vendor is out of business. So they're no longer supporting their software product, which we were using and are required to use to file all of our run fire data information, the stuff that goes into the national database, which is the NIFRS, they call it, the National Incident Fire Reporting System. And all of that is required in order for you to be eligible for the grants that we've been applying for through USDA and FEMA and all the other support the firefighter grants. So it's a critical piece of their infrastructure, as well as we go down the road and look at fire service and how we're providing fire service and options and conversations that might get into run data and all that. This will give us one platform to work from. So we'll have all the information from Rockingham, Saxons River, and the village all in the same basic format. So we'll be able to hopefully provide better information to whatever comes down the road if the boards have to take a look at that going forward. So it's kind of a necessary piece of a longer conversation that we've been talking about with equipment and manpower and stations and locations and all the other pieces that fit into the fire service. But this one is important because it's replacing a vital piece that we need to get up to date so that we're continuing to be eligible as we go forward.
So that being said, we will need a motion to approve the request for the reporting software contract in the amount of $75.31 for our fire, that current fire department budget.
I move that we approve $7,531 from our fire equipment budget for a new software package from a company ESO.
So here a second.
A second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the request for $7,531 for reporting software on the ESO contract. Any questions?
We have enough money in this budget there?
We do.
It's in there.
And we'll see as we go forward. I know we've been reporting to you for months that we're waiting on some of these report outs for the assistance to firefighter grants, the ones that we had applied for way, almost a year ago now. And they're still issuing out the money in dribs and drabs. And my guess is that they'll have to have it completely done by the end of the federal fiscal year because they'll have to have the money obligated. So we're still waiting to hear if some of these other items that we had asked for got funded either through that FEMA Assistance to Firefighter Grant Program or through the USDA program. And if not, we'll probably be coming back to you with a revised request for some equipment replacement for just some of the basic gear, like the bottles and some of the air packs that the guys wear, because some of that material is actually starting to expire. So they're going to have to replace a certain amount of that just to keep it in compliance. But that's all part of our request. And we've been sort of trying to, or hoping that maybe we'll get some federal support, but if not, we're going to have to come back to the board and talk about that as a request for equipment that you'd probably be seeing sometime this fall.
Does this software work for all three of our departments?
It does, and it also will give them the same training, so they'll all have the same implementation training. It also works with dispatch, because Keen does our computer-aided dispatch, so they'll also then be able to interface with the data. So we won't have to go through any other kinds of gyrations. It will all work fairly seamlessly.
Any other questions? All those in favor of the request of $7,531 from the current budget for the ESO reporting software would say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item 7 is a request of the Vermont Fish and Wildlife for relief for beaver issues. There's a letter in your packet from Mr. Picker to the
Especially the game warden.
game warden.
Yep.
And according to what I've been told, Glenn from the highway department has been in contact with this gentleman, and they're trying to work something out, but in order to continue, they needed a letter from the town to say to go ahead. So that's what this letter's for.
What do they want to do? Shoot the beaver?
Well, that'll be the last resort. If they have to, they will, if it's continuing to create enough a damage there where it's going to threaten the road or threaten the other pieces that because of the damming that they keep doing, it's starting to undermine areas and create real hazards. So there's a concern. We put a beaver deceiver that we have built and put it at Cambridgeport Road rather, and it is still experiencing significant flooding and issues because the beavers have just basically clogged it up. As soon as we clean it out. they
So
come back.
how does it, what do they do? How do they clog it? Can you describe? You know,
So they basically, we put together a system so that it's a larger sort of graded system. So the beavers just fill it up with sticks and mud and anything else that they can, and then they get it to where the water starts to pond. So,
I've got, you guys thought, I sent out, right, so the Skip Lyle guy in Grafton is the sort of the national and international expert on this problem, these kinds of things, and he's employed by towns and parks, and land trusts, and all kinds of people to solve these exact problems, and I sent the idea to him, and I got a letter back from him, which I would just like to read to you guys, not that long on this issue.
not one for you.
Yeah. Eric, okay, this is my reaction with respect to that proposal. I haven't seen the sites, but there's a 99% chance I can solve these conflicts economically and non-lethally for many decades. To date, though, I've not been consulted. My company has ended these types of conflicts at thousands of sites around the world for over 20 years, and he talks about the flow device. Conflicts occur where roads transect or near low grading areas or small streams. This tiny percentage of the landscape is beaver damming habitat. It will always attract new beavers, particularly if the resident beavers are killed. Culverts and small bridges in particular are ideal damming sites. When in these areas, they are beaver magnets. Therefore, a kill-based defense just guarantees you will never solve the problem. The endless cycle of killing, cleaning culverts, and repairing damaged infrastructure is very inefficient, ultimately extremely expensive. Furthermore, by adopting a policy of essentially extirpating beavers from local ecosystems, we lose a lot of other types of value to the community. Dams decay or are not built in the absence of beavers. By contrast, if conflict points are eliminated with high-quality flow devices, and beavers do not have to be killed, fantastic non-threatening wetlands persist or often created nearby. These have enormous ecological value for most of our game animals and thousands of non-game species. For example, the federal government is up to $500,000 per acre for man-made wetlands, which are far poorer than the all-natural beaver-created variants. And there are a lot of benefits that he goes on about. For many reasons, best to solve the problem with beavers for once and for all. The only way to do this is with a high-quality flow device. They represent a great opportunity to both save a lot of taxpayer money while also improving the town's wildlife habitat. I would be glad to help Rockingham do this. So my thought is that if we can, just Andy and Skip could simply have a phone conversation, whatever, just, with that, just to trade information, see what the possibilities might be for a non-lethal.
you can certainly come out and look at the Cambridgeport Road, see what we've already done.
All right.
In that location, which is basically a modified system, much like he has in his email that he had sent.
Yeah.
Pretty much the same basic design, maybe a little different. His is a little different than what we put together.
Yeah, Thad put one. We had in our neighborhood, there's some beavers on the road, on Thad's property. We had a beaver deceiver put in 3 years ago. We always used to clean it out, and it's been fine for 3 years. So I think it's worth checking out. Just to have a conversation is all I'm asking.
I would suggest that Scott be involved, not just Andy and Skip.
Okay.
I mean,
We'll give him a
Yeah, I
call.
mean, maybe you can explain to you why what you built was inferior to what he would propose, maybe there's a
There's a lot to it.
there's a little flaw in the beaver deceiver kind of thing that you had there.
So, yeah,
Very
give him a-
possible.
Sure, we'll give him a call.
All right,
Come out. I think it.
You
you'll have to-
call, you give him a call.
No, I'll give him a call.
Great.
I've got his stuff, contact information.
He's a really good guy.
Right.
So, okay, thanks.
That's great.
Great. So that's the process we'll follow and get this letter to the thing and they can work the details out.
Yeah.
But basically all this letter mentions it, they'll try to
Yep.
relieve.
Peter, can I just ask one question? Have you contacted the railroad about the Lower Bartonsville culvert? Because that was getting bad. I'm assuming after this last rain, it's even worse. They have to clean it out because it's their culvert, but has anybody reached out to them to do it yet again?
I'll check with Andy. I know he's in touch with them periodically, but I'll see if he's done it after this rain specifically.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
All right, we all set with that one? And let's go to the last item, which will be the RLF collateral subordination request, which is in your packet. I did talk to Gary a little bit about it. Maybe he can explain if anybody's got any questions. He's still here. He didn't fall asleep on us, so.
So basically, the Twin Falls Training Center, the two principals did a great job getting some business consulting. We'll go around here. So you have to- having some consultants work with them on the business plan and financials, cash flows, setting them up for long-term success. And that included having, I think, 6 months reserve funds. So they have a week period of classes. There's a shutdown for a couple of months, like what happened with COVID. They have reserves to continue to pay the loans, like to the town revolving loan fund. So, so in order to have that reserve, most of the Vermont State Employees Credit Union loan for $40,000 is going to go towards those operating reserves. There will be some of it that goes towards improved lighting, some of the fit up, and some equipment, but the majority of the funds will be those operating reserves. And the rules of that, they're underwritten by the Small Business Administration, who are also fairly rigorous in evaluating an organization's capability to run a good business and stay as a going concern. But their requirements of any loans that they do is that they have first position. And so they're asking the town to subordinate our first position in our revolving loan. And the committee, the Revolving Loan Fund Committee, felt it was didn't really impact our security too much. They all felt really comfortable with the organization and subordinating to that loan. You know.
Yeah, I was at that meeting and Katie Dearborn's a professional banker. And she explained to us why this really doesn't affect our security. It was beyond me, but what she said made sense to the group and we all voted to bring it to the select board, right?
Yeah, so I mean, basically, collateral, equipment collaterals is tough to deal with and get your money back. They have plenty of equipment. That's really what's getting second position. They have strong abilities to pay on personal guarantee if the business were to fail. And so that was part of why Katie didn't indicate a concern, is they both both the principals are signed on for personal guarantees. And they're also, they talked about some long-term work with the Employees Credit Union in terms of between 2 and 3 years, consolidating the loans with either the SESQ or the town being the owner of the consolidated loans. Either organization would probably be happy with it. And yeah, from the bank's perspective, they were comfortable with those.
So the funds are coming from Vescu, not from our.
No more money from the yes.
That's the confusing part.
Yeah.
You and I talked about earlier, so just so
Yeah.
everybody's clear on
So
that.
so the town is not loaning any more funds. They're borrowing money from another lender who's asking us to be in second position to subordinate our loan.
And the business is off to a very good start.
Yeah, they have a pretty picture in the paper, I saw that.
Yeah, on Facebook and they're getting good enrollments.
So,
And this was part of their business plan and their initial conversations with the RLF, as well as sort of their entire presentation to get this additional funding. I think it's important to bring it back to this board because it is putting us in a subordinate position for credit. And I just want to make sure the board's fully informed that if there's a concern or question, obviously, then we'll have to go back. But I just felt it was important enough that we do this and make sure that we're all on the same page.
so the item in quotations here, town subordinates, et cetera, is a motion you. prefer?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so someone wants to read that motion on the, yeah, it says the town subordinates of Vermont.
Oh,
State.
yeah, I move that the town subordinates to the Vermont State Employees Credit Union, VSECU loan backed by the U.S. Small Business Administration.
I'll second that.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the subordination to the loan for VSQ for $40,000 for the Twin States
Twin Falls Training Center.
Training Center. I get it. Any questions? Comments? Hearing none, all in favor would say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, reviewing the poll orders and bills warrants. Do you have anything? Sean?
Didn't bring anything
Not
up.
yet? Okay.
It'll be the next meeting.
Review the agenda items for September 20. I have Depot Street Bridge.
Yeah.
We're gonna do financials probably coming around.
Yes.
We're trying to find out if there's gonna be a state representative. The guy that's coming down is gonna be from the design of the bridge.
Right.
So hopefully there will be a state person.
At the meeting.
Or this guy's gonna have to answer all the other questions such as the parking lot, the road, going to the parking lot,
Right.
utility movement and all that stuff. So,
Yeah, this is
Get
it
your
before
questions
final
ready.
design, so this is the last
Okay.
shot.
yeah.
I'll be attending the meeting remotely, but I will.
And so we may have some funds. We may have some, cost estimates too at that point. So we don't know what that final bill may or may be. So at that point, I'm thinking, I guess, I don't know, maybe are they gonna approach that subject or?
I imagine he'll have an updated estimate.
Yeah.
Engineer's estimate, which I don't think will go down. Right, we've all seen, but
Will we have that in hard copy, do you think?
I'm hoping so. He's done it before where he's given it to
Yeah,
me.
okay,
beforehand,
yeah, so we
I'm-
just
I've
hand
been
you.
asking him.
We did, we have it
Right.
in hard copy.
Yeah.
So, have I seen guys surveying out there a few months ago where were there people from the state scoping out the location?
We've been doing some borings, we've been doing some other preliminary work out there, so they might have done some right of way as part of that too. But you probably saw the boring guys out there.
Is there anything else on there we're gonna discuss?
Well, we have the cemetery
yeah,
committee
cemetery.
charge that we were going to bring on. BDCC had asked to come and do a presentation, so we'll have them on as well, which is just a presentation. And I believe we still have a follow-up item for Bonnie on the discussion of the swap shop. If we don't want to do it then, we can move it to the next meeting. It just depends. It's going to be a long meeting.
It's gonna be a long meeting because of, that guy.
Right.
You want to move it?
It's just that we have my
October,
people
it's
are going to be
first week,
sitting
probably
for an
first
hour for
Tuesday
the
of
bridge
October,
discussion
so.
and then,
Why don't we move it to
I think it makes sense to move to October. There'll be a lot of people, a lot of opinions.
I just think it would get more attention, I think, otherwise. I'd
Yeah,
have a
I
hard
think
time
so
to get to
too.
it.
I think we need to have some public
Okay,
here for that one. I believe.
so if that's all right, then I'll push it to that October meeting. We can let them know that, just so.
Yeah.
All right, so if anybody else has anything else, they can, hey, Scott, you and I gonna, you've got some, charges or some simple, thing for the cemetery committee you said you're gonna
Yes,
get
I'll-
around. Yeah, So,
Do a draft of,
we'll get something out and get, because we need to get them in charge of what they're supposed to be doing. what
Yeah.
they aren't
and you
gonna
have to
do, et
then,
cetera, et
after
cetera,
that,
et
do the
cetera.
appointments, so.
We don't even breaking gravestones and all this, that and stuff, so. Okay, agenda review items for the joint board, which is the September 27th. We will have to appoint a union negotiations representative for that. That's coming up, and we need to let the union know that we are going forward by October 1st. So we need to get somebody.
Yeah.
It's easy we do it, the joint board will be the trustees and the select board, and we can appoint somebody from each one.
There's a proposal from the bike pedestrian committee to paint the sidewalk, to indicate where the sidewalk is from the Legion forward to
It
the.
used to be painted at one time, I think, Scott and I talked about that. It used to have these white lines, or I thought they put stripes there at one point.
Yeah,
Instead of a solid color, but
yeah, right now it's kind of funky and cars swing out over it. I think we decided to just be safer for pedestrians that wouldn't
Yeah.
cost a lot of money, but that's something that affects the village and the
Yeah.
town, so.
because the raised sidewalk there would probably not work very well.
No.
Only because of drainage and plowing and everything else, and you gotta go up so much, basically, so it's a speed bump, and then you'd have puddles, you'd have a lake in there, once water can't get out, so it's gonna,
Exactly.
so
I think
that was
painted solution seems to be simple and we'll just make it clear where the cars go, where the people go.
Mhm.
all right.
We'll have an update on our tax sale process.
We'll probably be doing the DEI. The thing, we've got a simple one drawn up, and we'll get that in the packet. Yeah.
Diversity, equity, inclusion.
Right, so you can, you can bring it up to the select board, if the joint board, but both boards will have to adopt it or if or not adopt it. My suggestion is we just go ahead because it does have a bearing on some grant applications. If you don't have that in there,
Okay.
you may not be able to apply for grants, so we don't want to hold that process up, I'll tell you. So if the select board passes it, that's fine. Trustees don't want to pass it, that's their problem. Selectmen group has already passed one up there. So it's just up to us. Each board has to adopt one or doesn't have to.
Yeah,
adopt
there's not specific language, so we made up some, after the last conversation, we made some minor, just some changes in formatting and see if the boards are in agreement.
Did that FEMA money ever come?
No, we have been contacting the state. We finally got a hold of a person in Boston and sent her all this information. And then Gary ended up having to send some information back on Friday for stuff that we had submitted, I don't know, 3.5 months ago. I mean, it's a little bit ridiculous at times.
FEMA is very slow there, I can tell you that.
So,
How long? It's been about a year now?
well, it's been since we got the final approvals with the numbers and I sent the stuff back to them, it was May. When I reported out to you guys, it was early May. And they've had it since then. Why this got held up? And then this person in Boston never emailed anybody, just sat on it. Didn't say anything, didn't do anything, kept emailing people all over the state. Finally got a hold of this person and they said, oh, well, I'm waiting on this form.
Oh, it's $350,000, right?
600,000.
Oh, my God.
I say, when Irene came through, I know Ellen was handling a lot of that. That's been almost 2.5 years since that, before we finally got it all out.
It's just a little frustrating.
It is, it's crazy.
It's a paper chase. 'Cause, you know, you get handed off various people and various agencies. It's really frustrating. But I think we're fully submitted, so now, at least for that person, until somebody else.
So some other bureaucrat
So I guess we're in Boston. Eventually we gotta get to Washington. Someone's gonna write a check at some point.
got 400 miles to
We've
go.
gone through Vermont, we're in Boston. Now, God forbid, if we get to Washington, we might have a shot to get some money.
Jeez.
I mean, that's. absurd.
Okay, other business, Sue, you have anything? So you can leave if you want.
I'm all set. Thank you very much.
Hey, there's no need for an executive session anyway, so the next thing would be to adjourn. Rick,
I move that we adjourn.
Bonner, you have any other business?
No, and I second his motion.
Okay. Motion was made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're out of here, folks. Thank you.
We're gonna have a nice fast meeting.
Bye,
Bye.
y'all. Recording.